right, well, good to see everyone. Hope you had a good weekend. This week we are continuing our discussion of Dilgo Khyentse's Everyday Life, Dzogchen Practice in Everyday Life text. I'll share that here in the chat quick for everyone, just so you have the text. Let's see. There you go. So last week we left off on the verse, let's see, we're about halfway through the text. And so I think we were on the verse where it says, when engaging in meditation practice, we should feel it to be as natural as eating, breathing, and defecating. It should not become a specialized or formal event bloated with seriousness and solemnity. We should realize that meditation transcends effort, practice, aims, goals, and the duality of liberation and non-liberation. Meditation is always ideal. There is no need to correct anything. Since everything that arises is simply the play of mind as such, there is no unsatisfactory meditation and no need to judge thoughts as good or bad. So there's a lot going on here, a lot of good practical meditation instruction. However, before we talk about meditation, it's important that we recognize that what Dilgo Khyentse is referring to here is meditating within the state of awareness itself, right? So last week we talked about the view, which is about 4 paragraphs earlier, seeing all things as naked, clear, and free of obscuration. There's nothing to attain or realize. The nature of phenomena appears naturally and is naturally present in time-transcending awareness. So he introduced the view in that paragraph, and that's the basis for the meditation, right? So when we carry that view into meditation, into our session, then it's exactly as he's describing here. It shouldn't be this kind of, we're not kind of puffing ourselves up to practice meditation. We're not going into some kind of, elaborate ritual or some kind of, just kind of fabricated state. We're not creating a fabricated meditation. It's very natural. We're just resting in that natural state of awareness itself and noticing those naturally present qualities, the abiding nature of awareness, the natural clarity, right? So it's not that we're creating anything. Karen, I see your hand up. Go ahead.
Yeah, I hope this isn't too much background noise.
Nope.
Rinpoche had said very similar instructions to me very early on when after meeting him, he said, it's really that simple. When you're really engaged in your path, whatever you're doing, that resting in awareness can occur.
Yeah, I mean, it's exactly like Dilgo Khyentse here says, it should feel as natural as eating, breathing, and defecating, right? So it just feels like if we're walking, in the park,
Right.
there's that
Yeah,
natural sense of,
Rinpoche has actually used the bathroom example as well.
yeah. Well, I think it's the least holy place that we can think of, right?
The least elaborate. It's like everywhere you can apply this.
So yeah, when he says in this, meditation instruction, it's meditation that transcends effort, right? Well, why does it transcend effort? Because if we're resting in the natural state, effort is we're trying to achieve something, we're trying to do something, right? And so we're engaging in the ordinary mind there. We're engaging in concepts, right? there's no aims, there's no goals, right? Because if there are goals, if we're trying to, if we're trying to reach some special state or something, all of that is just an idea. It's a concept that we're grasping onto and trying to shape. We're trying to shape our meditation into that thing rather than letting the meditation and awareness be as it is. John, go ahead. John, are you muted?
Sure. There we go. My computer's been hanging up lately. I apologize. Yeah, there's nothing natural about that, and that's an interesting thought. We're given the instructions to let whatever arise as it is, not change it into something else, not transform it into anything else. And that begs the question for a person who's been meditating and studying for a little bit. I'm not saying that I've been meditating and studying correctly, but when we meditate and study for a long time, it begs the question, are we coming full circle here? Are we seeing the problems with samsara, realizing that samsara is enlightenment itself, and then bringing that home to say enlightenment is nothing but what we see normally, right? Coming to rest in the state that, hey, everything's okay. Quit worrying. Everything is okay, because that's where I'm landing these days. Is you couldn't make anything more special than what it is.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway.
Yeah, well, that is the unique, view of Dzogchen, is that awakening is always here in this present moment, right? It's not like when we achieve awakening, we kind of end up in some kind of, transcendent pure realm or something, right? That this moment, this arising, this experience that we have right now is the basis for awakening. If we see it as nothing but the true nature of our mind in this momentary kind of expression as it is.
Yes. And that's why the view is so nitpickingly important. You know what I mean? That's why it's so important, because one little grain of understanding out of step and you're eternalist or nihilist, right? I mean, it's very important to get that view thoroughly refined.
Yeah. That grain reminds me of, because I think one of the dangers that you're kind of pointing out, John, is the danger of talking yourself into this, right? Oh, everything is free as it is. Like, we can kind of have this story, this narrative that we just keep telling ourselves, and it's kind of like, putting the baby to sleep sort of thing, and it's just like, oh, everything is perfect, everything is great. I'm just resting in open presence and unconditional love and all this stuff, right? But it's all just a story that we're narrating our enlightenment, right?
You're covering the beautiful wood of the truth with white paint.
Yeah. Yeah. But the grain that you mentioned is really important, because the grain is suffering. We still have suffering, right? And the way that we work with that suffering is either we work with it skillfully and we're receptive and we're responsive and we're, experiencing suffering, experiencing pain, but not becoming in the cycle of reactivity and like the whole samsaric existence, right? And so that grain is suffering, right? And if it's just like a piece of sand or like a piece of dust in the eye, like just a little bit is enough to be really irritating, right?
Yep.
And so if we notice that we're kind of, we have this story of how accomplished we are and how great of practitioners we are and how great our teacher is and the lineage and, how fortunate we are. But then we meet this grain of suffering with reactivity and with anger and with a lot of, we're searching for release from that, right? We're searching for liberation. We're searching for something else other than this, to experience the irritation of this grain of sand in our eye. That's the sign. That's the sign that you're not actually doing the thing you're saying you're doing.
Yeah, I love what you said about trying to talk ourselves into it. I started martial arts for a little bit, and my martial arts teacher would always tell us, "You can't figure this out. You have to do it. You can't. It's not a riddle. It's not a math problem. It has no single answer. You just have to do it."
Yep. Yeah. So, and that also to me means, it kind of, John was talking about bringing everything back full circle. And to me, this comes back to the very first noble truth, right? And how are we engaging as Dzogchen practitioners with the first noble truth? How are we engaging with the truth of suffering, right? Are we able to carry this wisdom that we have from the practice into that experience? Or are we still really struggling with this reality of our, physical body and our emotions, our thoughts, anxiety, all of that kind of stuff, right? Dilgo Khyentse says, since everything arises is simply the play of mind as such, there is no unsatisfactory meditation and no need to judge thoughts as good or bad, because within the context of the view, everything is the play of mind. Everything is just this unfolding, illusory appearance, right? Whether those are good thoughts, whether they're bad thoughts, whether they're suffering, whether it's bliss, all of that is just seen as this play of mind. And so within the view of equanimity, seeing all phenomena as equal in their empty nature and experiencing that equanimity, that's how we can say there's no unsatisfactory meditation, no need to judge, right? Because the view is the basis for that insight. Isabel.
Yeah, in that paragraph, it talks about meditation, but I feel that post-meditation is included in it, even if it's not mentioned. And I feel like the real challenge is really just basically to keep the view in both meditation and post-meditation. That's the path, whatever we do, sitting or not on the cushion.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, we definitely need to gain stability and familiarity with this in our meditation first, right? To have a glimpse of this in meditation, and then to think that, oh, I'm going to carry this same wisdom, the same sense of openness and receptiveness into into my daily life, into my relationships, into my work, into my community. That's a huge challenge. And so I would say don't set the expectation that that's going to happen right away. We need to gain stability. We need to gain familiarity. We need to stabilize this experience in meditation, working with emotion, working with thoughts, working with anxiety, working with, bliss, working with all these different mental states in our meditation. Just the reality of our physical body, even sometimes, is enough to be overwhelming in our meditation, right? Your knees are hurting and you have your body feels heavy and sluggish. Just working with that in meditation, much less as you're moving through the world. But yes, Isabel, this insight that we're gathering, this experience that we're gathering is feeding into our daily life too. Karen, go ahead.
Yeah, it seems that, prior to our coming to learn about Dzogchen, we didn't necessarily have an inkling of this view. So our practice, our everyday practice, is to just kind of be with whatever arises, and every day gives you an opportunity to kind of build that practice muscle, and as well as cultivating that ease. It's an interesting contemplation, because you build up skill along the path, but then you also continue to simplify. There's so many times I have said, how does this dynamic display have to have so much bling? And yet, that's where the practice is.
Yeah.
But put down the bedazzler, but that's, like I say, that's where the practice is.
Yep. Yeah, the next paragraph, he actually goes on to say, therefore, we should simply sit, simply stay in your own place, in your own condition, just as it is. Forgetting self-conscious feelings, we do not have to think, I am meditating. Our practice should be without effort, without strain, without attempts to control or force, and without trying to become, quote unquote, peaceful. So yeah, that's to Karen's point, this idea of like the practice itself shouldn't be about, adding anything to the experience. It's really kind of this kind of bare stripping away, resting in simplicity. Just letting everything be as it is. He goes on to say, if we find that we are disturbing ourselves in any of these ways, we stop meditating and simply relax or rest for a little while. Then we resume our meditation. If we have interesting experiences, either during or after meditation, we should avoid making anything special of them. To spend time thinking about experiences is simply a distraction and an attempt to become unnatural. These experiences are simply signs of practice and should be regarded as transient events. We should not attempt to re-experience them, because to do so only serves to distort the natural spontaneity of mind. This is a really important paragraph, because I think there's a lot of things here that people get hung up on. One of my favorite instructions of Khyentse Rinpoche was that when I first started meditating with him in this Dzogchen style and just resting in the natural state, he would say whenever we feel like we're really having a quote unquote, good session, that we should intentionally kind of sever that flow and just gently move our body, maybe shift our gaze and just kind of break it and then settle back into the natural state. And that was really important, because it taught me that we don't need to get into this meditation state and then it's like something really precious, right? Like it's like a really precious thing that we're cultivating and holding on to, and we're having a really good experience. We don't want to let it go. But actually the instruction is, no, just let it go. Because you know what? This is your natural state. This isn't something to fabricate. This isn't something to contrive. This isn't something to hold on to, because it's your natural state. It's not something other than you. And so letting it go gets rid of that preciousness of the experience. It cuts through that grasping onto, oh, I had a pure view. I was seeing, luminous light and rainbows and who knows what. Buddhas were coming and visiting me. Dakinis were showering flowers on me. Who cares? It's just another experience, right? It's just another sign. Dilgo Khyentse says, these are signs of practice and should be regarded as transient events. We should not attempt to re-experiencing them, because to do so only serves to distort the natural spontaneity of mind. So of course you're going to have all kinds of experiences, bliss, clarity, non-conceptuality, everything in between. But the key point is that these are the natural arising of your own nature, and you'll enjoy them in meditation. You don't need to reject positive experiences because they're somehow bad, but just recognize that these are the natural kind of wellspring of your own Buddha nature, right? So it's something we can experience and we can enjoy, but we don't need to hang on to it or search for it, or when we're having them, treat them as if they're kind of really important or precious. Karen, go ahead.
I'm also reminded of Toggle practice that Rinpoche has taught, and he's saying the same thing. Don't get too enamored of whatever you might see as far as visions or experience. It's an experience, but don't, go, woo-ha, I got it. It's just, just keep going.
Yeah. It's a big obstacle for a lot of Dzogchen practitioners because that's what we hear about, right? We hear about Toggle, we hear about this visionary experience, and so we think, oh, well, that's the sign that I'm, progressing. And so because we're having this desirous mind that wants signs, that wants accomplishment, that wants validation, right? We want that sign. We want to have that experience. And that's why Longchenpa says in his teachings on Dzogchen that Trekshud is absolutely critical, and that we should not receive the instruction on Toggle until after we've mastered Trekshud. Because if we don't have that basis, then Toggle is just feeding, the Toggle practices are just feeding more delusion and more confusion and more strain from our nature. So rather than having the natural expression of luminosity unfold, we just have these experiences that we're clinging to and like trying to recreate, right? John, go ahead.
So one of the instructions for Zen meditation, which I appreciate, is the aspect of giving up. And I don't mean giving up in that there's no resolution, or there's no, so why even try, right? There's no, not in that, at that aspect, but Longchenpa describes it as utterly without attachment. That's the way it's translated into English in a couple of the translations I'm thinking about for the Choying Zod. Anyway, utterly without attachment, and utterly means, I mean, not even expecting to meditate, not even expecting to have samsara or nirvana, not even expecting to have fruition. You know what I mean? And so this giving up also kind of brings us back to our natural place, where if we're kind of okay, again, another martial arts thing. So if you're trying to defend yourself and you're kind of leaning into it, getting ready, right? Then this is not spontaneous. This isn't natural. But if you're just waiting and it arises, then you've got something. And I don't know, I have appreciated that, and I don't think I did a very good job of expressing what I'm trying to say, but this aspect of maybe non-striving, but also giving up and letting it be what it is, rather than trying to make it be something else. Anyway.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think, that's kind of the key point here, is that Dilgo Khyentse is talking about being completely without expectation or anticipation about your experience, right? And just being utterly without attachment, as John's saying, right? With regard to the session, simply let it be as it is, right? Simply. And so anything that we're trying to hang on to or preserve, or kind of I had this meditation session and I want to get back to that feeling, right? Like that's not it. That's a mistake. That's a deviation from the path of resting in the natural state. Donna, go ahead.
the idea of it not being like a cat waiting for a mouse, watching for a mouse, I think that's a really helpful
Yeah.
analogy, because
Yeah, that's great.
how they work so hard at waiting for something, and but it's not like that. Meditation is not. So if you figure out what the difference is, it's a good thing. If you
Yeah.
be like the cat,
Ready to pounce.
yeah.
That's a great analogy, Donna. Thank you. In the next paragraph, Dilgo Khyentse goes on to say, all phenomena are completely new and fresh, absolutely unique and entirely free from all concepts of past, present, and future. They are experienced in timelessness. There's a translation in Jamyang Kongtrul's collection of Nyingma teachings. They translated this. I thought it was really interesting. They translated past, present, and future, and then the fourth time was the way they translated it. At first, I was like, "What? The fourth time? What are they talking about?" Right? But it's this timelessness quality, right? This kind of, you could say like the eternal, the primordial, the but it's this idea that it's beyond time, right? It's not, time is a linear thing. It's a relational thing, right? When things are moving in relation to each other, and therefore they have velocity and time and all the physics, right? But here we're talking about awareness, which is beyond time, right? It's this uncompounded. I don't even want to say present, because that makes it sound like, it says he's free from the concepts of past, present, and future, right? So the idea of present is you're kind of like, you're holding the present, right? Where this is like a complete unfolding into now, which seems like it's the present maybe, but there's just not that sense of holding to it. John, go ahead. I see your hand up.
I've just seen it translated as the timeless time.
Timeless time, yeah.
Yeah, and that's okay, but really when you're trying to say that it's beyond that temporal context, you can't refer to that temporal context. You know what I mean? You can't, that's like saying, well, it's like a non-blue blue. What? Well, it's green. It's not blue at all, right? So we need to come up with a new, and I don't know what the Tibetan words are and what they mean literally, but we need to come up with a different translation that does that, because I think that's the spontaneity aspect of it, that it's not what it was, and it's not something you can predict. It's going to be what it will be in the in its own way, in its own moment, in its own arising, in its own in every way, it will be what it will be. Anyway.
Yep.
Timeless time.
Yeah, I mean, you could also, so I think they're translating yine. Yine means from the beginning, or I mean, kind of like, it's often translated as timelessness, but primordial, from the beginning, always is, like it's always the case, right? So that's where you get the sense of like eternity. Isabel, go ahead.
What about just beyond any time frame?
Yeah, I think beyond time is kind of like what they're trying to point to is, right? It's beyond the bounds of time. The next paragraph, the continual stream of new discovery, revelation, and inspiration which arises at every moment is the manifestation of our clarity. This is a big paragraph. Maybe we'll just stop with that. The continual stream. So we're resting in this meditation, right? We're resting in the natural state. The continual stream of the continual stream of new discovery, revelation, and inspiration which arises at every moment is the manifestation of our clarity. That's a really interesting way.
The word this discovery is interesting here.
Yeah, like revelation, inspiration, discovery. It's a very like these are all very creative words, which you don't find a lot in Tibetan like texts. They don't really use these type of words: inspiration, discovery, revelation, right? Those are kind of creative, this creative potential, right? But he's saying those are linked with our clarity. So the clarity aspect of our mind is this unceasing luminosity, right? This luminosity is on a formless level, it's just the luminous radiance of our kind of experience. And Dilgo Khyentse is talking about how that clarity aspect is giving rise to this sense of inspiration, revelation, right? This kind of it's the kind of creative potency, I guess you could say, for these things. Anyways, I'll say that translating a lot of Tibetan texts, we don't find this type of language very often. So it's interesting that he's using that. I think we can see in our own practice, in our own life, how that is the case. But I'm just going to point out that it's kind of unique the way he's kind of using it here. He goes on to say, we should learn to see everyday life as a mandala, the luminous fringes of experience which radiate spontaneously from the empty nature of our being. So the mandala, the everyday experience, is this unfolding play of reality, right? And that involves not only our environment, but also involves people or animals or, any of the 6 realms of existence, I guess you could say. The luminous fringes of experience which radiate spontaneously, which is really just to say that the creative potential of the nature of reality as emptiness and dependent origination is just this luminous, experience of spontaneous play. Whatever's coming up is coming up, right? We're not creating it. It's just this web of dependent origination, which is all brought about from the empty nature of our being and from the empty nature of reality. So it's not, if we have that wisdom, this is really the wisdom of the 2 truths, right? That things appear, but they're empty in nature. And so we see that reality of the 2 truths as the everyday experience of the mandala, right? It's kind of what he's pointing out here. The aspects of our mandala are the day-to-day objects of our life experience, moving in the dance or play of the universe. By this symbolism, the inner teacher reveals the profound and ultimate significance of being. Therefore, we should be natural and spontaneous, accepting and learning from everything. This enables us to see the ironic and amusing side of events that usually irritate us. This is a really profound, like, day-to-day, like, post-meditation instruction. To see everything as the play of the mandala. Everything is this play of this dance or this play of the universe. And that symbolism is the inner guru, the inner teacher that reveals the profound and ultimate significance of being. So there's a lot of freedom there actually to experience. If we're carrying that view, we're carrying that wisdom into our everyday experience like this, there's a lot of insight, a lot of wisdom that we can discover there in our own experience. Carlo, go ahead.
Yeah, this is an interesting area. How he's saying that all experiences, all phenomena, actually to be seen as the deity, and the objects are the mandala. And because when we do tantra, we have a sort of creative form of what we interpret as the deity and as mandala. And we've kind of got used to that being the form that we've accustomed to. But then when we look at ordinary objects, like he's saying, it doesn't look the same, right? The two, he's saying that they are, but that it doesn't, the vision doesn't match what we've been taught how it looks like in Tantra. And so that's why forever we've habituated to objects being ordinary, because that's how we've always taken them in appearance. So in some way, our practice really has to translate the vision of the mandala to the objects that we've ordinarily taken as ordinary. So it seems like the transition is more of a knowingness rather than a picture that we've got used to in Tantra.
Yep.
It's kind of like we just know it's that.
Yeah.
Even though it looks ordinary to our senses, it's not taken, the experience of it's not taken that way.
Yep. Yeah, so Tantra is a path of
interesting.
transformation, right? So we're transforming impure vision into pure vision. And so we're using visualization of a pure mandala, the deities, the symbolism, all that kind of stuff it's using concepts skillfully to purify impure appearances, to reduce our fixation on ordinary impure appearances into this kind of pure vision, right? Where here we're recognizing the nature directly as this union of appearance and emptiness, right? So there's not a sense of impure appearances that need to be purified, because everything is, as he says a couple paragraphs ago that we were talking about, everything is the play of mind as such. And so there's no unsatisfactory experience. There's no basis for impure appearances. There's no basis for ordinary appearances, right? That's ordinary appearances are just the grasping of a dualistic ordinary mind. And so if we're recognizing awareness, if we're recognizing our Buddha nature, and we're carrying that into our everyday life, our everyday experience, then exactly like he's saying here, day-to-day objects are moving in the dance or play of the universe, right? And we're not attributing their ordinariness, because we're not applying the concept, the label. We're not thinking, we're just seeing them as this is another thing that's the play of emptiness, right? It's not conceived as ordinary. It's just experienced. John, go ahead.
Yeah, I'm glad you delineated the path of transformation from the path of liberation here, because they do have two different methods, right? So we kind of, this is my take on it, so for what it's worth, the tantric method of deity yoga using the yidam tries to reveal our true nature through symbols, right? And the path of liberation doesn't need symbols, because it's showing it as it really is, pure as the mandala itself. So when we're using symbols, they look like forearms, white accoutrement, crowns, etc. But in reality, the mandala is what we're perceiving right here.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, I'm glad you delineated that, because it's a different method. Yeah.
Yeah. And I would just kind of reiterate, like, symbols are concepts, right? So the symbol is, there's a meaning kind of packaged into the symbol, right? And then we're using that symbol to kind of like seal appearances, right? Seal our experience. But within that symbol, we've kind of packed it with meaning, which is concepts, right? So it's not direct experience like here. It's kind of it's just a skillful way to use our conceptual mind.
Yeah. Well, and Longchenpa has something to say about that too. And I've said this before, he talks about it when you have water in your ear, right?
Mhm.
You
Yep.
can't get it out with a rag putting it in there. You have to put more water in order for the cohesion to happen, and the water comes out when you
Yep.
tilt it.
Yep.
So it's the same thing here, is we're kind of using more pure concepts, right? More accurate concepts. Let's say that, more accurate concepts.
Yep. Okay, let's go to the next paragraph. In meditation, we can see through the illusion of past, present, and future. Our experience becomes the continuity of nowness. The past, only an unreliable memory held in the present. The future is only a projection of our present concepts. The present itself vanishes as soon as we try to grasp it. So why bother with attempting to establish an illusion of solid ground? So this kind of comes back to that notion of timelessness that we were talking about before, this kind of eternal now. And he kind of clarifies this sense now, this continuity of nowness, and that, the past is just clinging to our ideas, our memories, our experiences that happened in the past, right? The future is just projecting out in front of us our current concepts. And then the present vanishes as soon as we try to grasp it, right? So we're trying to be present, we're trying to hold the present, but it's kind of like it's like the water running through, you have a sieve, like a mesh sieve. You're trying to catch the stream of water, but the water just keeps going through, right? Or my favorite analogy, the baby raccoon trying to grab the stream of water, right? Keeps grabbing at it, but like you can't hold on to it. And so this idea of trying to maintain the present as something that's kind of really important to cling to, we can't do it because we're constantly just grasping at water that's running through our fingers.
Then another one of my favorite analogies is if you get your hand stuck in a jar because you're trying to take the lemon out, right? And you can't get your hand out until you let go, right?
This is there's a name for this, the monkey's dilemma or something.
Yeah. Right.
Is that what it is? I don't know.
It sounds as good as anything.
Yeah, I think that started with, there was researchers who, monkeys would see a banana or a fruit in a box. They'd put their hand in, and then they couldn't figure out, because they wanted the thing in it so bad, they couldn't figure out how to get their hand out because they were so attached to the whatever they were holding.
I've been there.
Yeah, so I think we all have been there, yes. All right, let's go to the next paragraph. Any other comments on that last one? I think the idea there is just this remaining in this continuity of nowness, not grasping to the present, not projecting onto the future, not searching into the past, but just resting in this open present continuity of nowness, quote unquote present. All right. Next.
Can I add one thing to that before we move on?
Yeah.
I think that's what the stream is that we're talking about. We're talking about this, when he says stream, we're talking about this stream of nowness, in that it's not relational, it's all now, right? And that there's no other option than now, just as there's no other option then it is what is appearing, right? It is this clear, empty, spontaneously present vision of awareness.
Yeah.
And I've always contended that quote unquote now moment, not a singular now moment, but that now moment is the access to this mandala, so to speak. Anyway, that's all. Sorry.
Yep. Yeah, I kind of I always come back to the dancing metaphor, and I think it works well here too. Like, if we're dancing to the present stream of music, right? And we're dancing to the present stream of partners and the environment. We're not thinking about the song that played before, and we're not anticipating who we're going to dance with next. We're just in this continuity of nowness. And maintaining that experience is the kind of everyday practice of Dzogchen. All right, so he says, we should free ourselves from our past memories and preconceptions of meditation. Each moment of meditation is completely unique and full of potentiality. In such moments, we will be incapable of judging our meditation in terms of past experience, dry theory, or hollow rhetoric. So this is, kind of reiterating the same point, just kind of, eliminating this kind of conceptualizing of our experience, whether it's past meditation experiences we have or ideas about what our meditation should be, but also not getting kind of caught up in this. He says dry theory. I think what I see a lot is like, and I fall prey to this all the time as well, but like you get into this like speculation, right? It's like, so we've had this experience and now we're speculating about like the origins of the universe or something, right? And it's like, that's all just hollow rhetoric, dry theory, as he's describing here, right? And so noticing that that's a trap, that's a deviation, because we're trying to take this one experience that we're having and then use it to kind of explain away, everything else that's happening in our experience and in our world. So he goes on to say, simply plunging directly into meditation in the moment now with our whole being, free from hesitation, boredom, or excitement, is enlightenment. That's a big statement to cap off this text. Simply plunging directly into meditation in the moment now with our whole being, free from hesitation, boredom, or excitement, is enlightenment. So that kind of brings us back full circle to the view that we introduced last week. Vast, unborn, self-luminous wisdom is the ground of being, the beginning and the end of confusion. The presence of awareness in the primordial state has no bias towards enlightenment or non-enlightenment. It's never been known. There's no phenomena that ever arise in that state, right? It's the womb of potentiality. All things arise and dissolve in this natural great perfection. So what he's saying here is that the view, according to the Dzogchen tradition, the ground of awareness is enlightenment. And when we can rest in that state, when we recognize that state, when we're decisive about that experience, without hesitation, boredom, excitement, we're not adding anything to the experience, we're not expecting anything, when we can just recognize that and be decisive about that, that is enlightenment. But enlightenment isn't somewhere else. It's not a special state. It's not a special place. It's not a different time. It's just this eternal continuity of nowness in this ground of being. So what do we think about that? Well, I think one of the things we can say is, does that, so, if we come back to the Four Noble Truths, Four Noble Truths says there's the truth of suffering, the truth of the origin of suffering, which is attachment, aversion, ignorance. There's the truth of cessation, which is the cessation of suffering, and truth of path, right? So in the context of the Four Noble Truths, is there suffering in this state, right? If we're resting in the ground of being, is there suffering there? John or Carlo? John, go ahead.
I think the now moment is full, I guess, integration, gom, of the view.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean?
Yep.
Because when we talk about the truth of suffering, that's ma-gom. We call it ma-rigpa, but how would you say non-integration?
Yeah.
Jigsaw, juxtaposition.
Like a fractured.
Fractured. Yeah, I agree with that. Fractured. So we say integration, but really the integration is a choice we're making. So when we come to the second truth, the cause of suffering, the cause is I am not integrating, right? And so we have to integrate. And then of course the path and cessation is the ground of being itself and integrating with that. So I mean, when we bring that to the four truths, I mean, we can just say the truth of cessation and as a singular truth, right? In the Dzogchen path, maybe.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Carla, go ahead.
Yeah, just on that topic, then, like what John's saying, this usually there will be a narrowing down of attention on suffering, but there's all sorts of experiencing that are happening at the same time, so that cognizance can be not just focused there. There's other things happening concurrently. And then there's the question of who is suffering. And so there's a fixation there. And when all those fixations are released, where is the suffering? And who's there having it? And there's all this other stuff going on as well. So it really puts a question. But the thing is, the other aspect to this is ordinarily, without us being introduced to these teachings and to contemplate them, it's not likely that we would ever come to such a view. So it's necessary to avail oneself to, allow oneself to kind of be immersed in some sense, just to see what guidance we can get from it,
Yeah, and I would say, to gain confidence in this point that he's making here, we really need to do the work of meditation, right? It's not enough to be introduced to the view, to go to a teaching or go to a retreat and the teacher introduces the view, and then you have a little taste, and then you go back to your daily life and you're kind of doing your things. That's not going to cut it, right? You need to immerse yourself, like Carlo, you said, immerse ourselves in this. We need to, Garb Dorsey says, we need to be decisive. We need to gain confidence in this unique state. Because without that confidence, without that decisiveness, this is just another idea then, right? Another idea that, oh, I'm resting in the natural state. This is enlightenment, right? I'm enlightened now. I'm Buddha. But that's just another idea because it's not actually our experience. And so being decisive, gaining that confidence, gaining that certainty, that's really important. Otherwise, this isn't true. It's only true if we are able to actually recognize and maintain the view and rest in the view. And Longchenpa says in the Choying Zud, this is really important because from a, we talked about the Four Noble Truths, but from a, Vajrayana perspective, when we're introduced to Buddha nature, we say that Buddha nature, it has the three kayas and the five wisdoms, right? So the quote unquote, what enlightenment means from a Vajrayana perspective is that full actualization of the three kayas and the five wisdoms, right? And so in this moment of simply resting in awareness itself, the ground of being, without hesitation, boredom, excitement. To say that that is enlightenment means that the three kayas, Dharmakaya, Sambhogakaya, Nirmanakaya, and the five wisdoms are fully evident in one's experience, right? Those are being experienced directly as the nature of your own awareness. So from a Dzogchen perspective or from a tantric perspective, we're having that, we're not resting in the natural state and then thinking, oh, this is enlightenment, and then we're like, ooh, where's Dharmakaya? Ooh, where's, or ooh, is this Sambhogakaya or is it Dharmakaya? I'm not, there's like an uncertainty there, right? Or we're thinking about the wisdoms. Oh, this is mirror-like wisdom, right? Everything is like pristine, natural reflection of the nature of the mind, right? All appearances are this pristine reflection. And then we're like, oh, well, okay, if that's the mirror-like wisdom, and then, well, where's the, equanimity, right? So we're doing this like internal chess match of like trying to like line up everything in our experience so that it fits together conceptually, but that's not the thing, right? We're just conceptualizing our experience at that point. John, go ahead.
It reminds me of what you said earlier about trying to figure it out, trying to piece it together, trying to create a jigsaw puzzle. It's like when we it's like we have our iPhones and we say, oh, I wonder what the weather is going to be like today. Just go outside, right?
Yeah.
Go outside and see it, right?
Yeah.
Anyway.
All right, so we're out of time. We finished the text today. Next week we have our retreat starting on Sunday, so we won't meet next week. But any questions, anything people want to bring up? I do want to encourage you, now that you have this text, I encourage everyone to kind of just revisit every while. It's a really beautiful text. It's a real gift that Dilgo Khyentse shared, because it's a very simple, I would say not necessarily simple, because it's not simple. It's not a simple practice. It's a very approachable, it's a very accessible presentation of the Dzogchen practice. So it's a good reminder. It's a good, thing to try to carry with us on the path. All right, let's dedicate. Zhongshu Samsho Rinpoche Make Panam Janjoche Kepa Nampa Mepa Yong Gongne Gongdu Pawa Sho. May this precious jewel of bodhicitta arise where it has not arisen, where it has arisen, may it never fail, but grow and flourish evermore. All right, thank you, everyone. Have a great week, and looking forward to seeing everyone next week at retreat. Take care.
Yeah, can't
See you
wait.
next week.
Everyone. Yay.
Yep. We'll see you all
Bye-bye.
soon.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.